Now, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Hurricane Milton is expected to make landfall along Florida's western coast by midweek, potentially impacting densely populated areas like Tampa Bay with severe flooding, high winds, and storm surges. Authorities are preparing for large-scale evacuations with over 6 million residents potentially affected. Now, this comes as Florida is still recovering from Hurricane Helene, which struck just 2 weeks ago. Now, to talk more about the economic impact a natural disaster of this scale could have is Dave Margolin. He is the chief meteorologist for the Intercontinental Exchange. Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Trinity.
So let's just dive in here. Let's just briefly discuss, how are businesses supposed to prepare for a hurricane of this magnitude? You know, Hurricane Milton is anticipated to be one of the strongest hurricanes that we have seen in history.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, Milton reached a top speed of 185 miles an hour yesterday, which is near the highest we've seen in Atlantic Basin history. So absolutely, you have to prepare for potentially a catastrophic hurricane. Now, in terms of what you can do, obviously you want to try to evacuate as much as possible. If you can't evacuate and get away from the area, you can obviously, kind of shutter down and make sure you have all the emergency supplies that are necessary to, kind of weather a storm like this.
Now let's talk about some key effects that are going to impact businesses there on the ground when it comes to shipping, logistics, tourism, food and beverage, hotels, everything. How do you anticipate that the outcome will be after Hurricane Milton makes landfall?
Yeah, in terms of industry, so of course, Florida is known for citrus. So this is one of the major sort of ag industries that potentially could see a significant impact. Now, this time of year, a lot of the fruit are still on the trees in central and southern Florida. Likely we'll see significant production impacts in terms of the fruit. But the longer term concern is actually the trees. And there could be significant impact to the trees too, which could cause multi-year reductions in production there. In terms of shipping and things like that, the port of Tampa is the biggest port in Florida. So certainly there's going to be some impacts in terms of moving product in and out of the state.
Now, given that Florida is still reeling and recovering from when Hurricane Helene made landfall just 2 weeks ago, and now we're anticipating Hurricane Milton to make landfall, how does this amplify, the economic problems that are going to be addressed by these businesses after Hurricane Milton makes landfall?
Well, on one hand, maybe one silver lining of this is that Milton is expected to cross the peninsula of Florida and go out to sea. In other words, it's not expected to significantly impact the areas that were hurt last time, such as North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So those areas, the recovery operations should be able to continue to proceed without interruption. However, of course, you're going to stretch resources, right? So now we're going to be in a situation here probably in a couple days where you're going to have two areas where there's going to be major recovery operations ongoing, and certainly that's going to stretch resources, which can cause delays.
Do you anticipate any long-term shifts in the market when it comes to insurance industries, especially among hurricane season? And do you think that the increased frequency of storms of this magnitude will have any effect on that?
Well, we're already seeing a change or shift in the insurance markets because of hurricanes and because of the climate risks associated. Florida, places like Florida and Texas have some of the highest rates in the country. I think in some cases 3 times what the national rate is. And although I'm not an expert in this area, I would imagine the fact that we're going to see now 2 major hurricanes causing significant damage across the southeast United States, that after this, we're probably going to see only that trend increase. And in terms of, your second question was in terms of the climate issue, certainly this is something that I think industry is already embracing more of, but there needs to be a lot more work in terms of better assessing how climate is going to impact the frequency of these storms, especially intensity, and also the buildup of business and population along the Gulf Coast.
Thank you so much, Dave. A lot of important takeaways there.
Thank you, Trinity.